Do the recording. Yeah, I think it works.
Of course.
I'm gonna speak a little bit of Russian now for my people who are gonna at least see it, I hope. Здравствуйте, девочки, с вами Дарья Лебедева. Сегодня мы говорим с Шоном Дробеком про Хэллоуин. Я надеюсь, что люди присоединятся чуть-чуть попозже. Вот, и кто-то посмотрит это в записи. Сегодня вы сможете задать какие-то вопросы, которые вас волнуют. Можете писать в чат. Когда вы входите, не забудьте выключить звук и камеру, чтобы не перегружать эфир. Спасибо, и мы начинаем. Okay, so I was preparing some questions for you.
Of course.
Okay, so actually Halloween is a pretty tricky topic for Russian moms. Well, yeah, because it's a little bit too scary, maybe. So, and in Russia, generally, children started to be acquainted to this holiday when they're at school. When I was at school, I learned about this in, I think, year 5 of my school, and that was quite not so early. I mean, not like our small kids from 0 up to 3 or 4 years old. So how about America? How early are the kids involved into the celebration of the kids?
Immediately. So when children basically are 1 or 2 years old, generally the parents, so I'd have to say that even adults are interested in the celebration as well. So they do it for themselves, if not for the children. So when the child is young, the parents are not even so old, 25, 30 years old. They want to dress up as well. So the child is exposed to Halloween decorations. The parents dress them up in costumes. So when the child is 3 or 4 years old, they cannot wait for Halloween because every year they have some new costume or something like that.
This is fun. I was reading an article. There was, I think, a father who was writing about his child, and he asked his 4-year-old son, like, what do you need Halloween for? He said, Dad, I just need candies. So I think for kids, this is the only reason to really...
It's free candy. Candy isn't even expensive, but still. It's the one day that you don't just get free candy, because when you're young, it's free. Anyway, your parents buy it for you, of course. But it is the one day where parents generally let the child eat as much candy as they want, and they learn that if they eat too much, they get sick.
Well, yeah, I see. Well, now I think a lot of Russian moms, they're trying to explain kids about candies that these are not good, and I'm trying to replace this with fruits and or very dark chocolate or nuts, and I explained to Agatha about this. And for us, Halloween, it's not about candies; it's about nuts and dark chocolate. Okay,
hey,
anyway.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Well, I have another big question for you. Lots and lots of Russian people, I mean, not only moms, but basically like psychologists and stuff like that, think they're concerned about the negative influence of this celebration, of this too much scary costumes, too bloody atmosphere. What do you think about this, and what American people in general think about this?
So me personally, I think I hold an opinion similar to most other Americans. I think that there's nothing inherently wrong with this type of celebration and the decorations that you see. And I think that there's something to be said about exposing the child to things that are kind of scary sometimes, to see that it's not so bad. There's no reason to be scared of the dark. But I think maybe I'm thinking about it too much. I think generally when children are younger, the parents don't let them see the scariest costumes or what have you. And if they get scared, they forget about it. I would say that if I had children, I would maybe don't want them to dress up in a very disgusting costume or something very gross or scary. But I also wouldn't want them to watch movies that are too violent either. I'd want them to wait till they're older. So the same way that, you want to wait for the child to be a little bit older before they watch a movie with a lot of language or something violent. I think it's the same with Halloween as well. And generally, most of the time, decorations or costumes are more about fun rather than something really disgusting.
Well, yeah, I see. Well, I think maybe these are teenagers who like to use something really scary.
That's true.
Blood and very scary makeup and stuff, because it's a chance to show themselves.
Yeah.
By the way, how does it happen in school? I mean, do teachers support this? Of course they do, because this is your culture.
Yes, I think that in our schools, usually it's even a couple days prior to Halloween, people will start to wear costumes, or maybe usually at school. To be honest, I think that at most schools, they don't allow people to wear makeup on their face, but that's more of a school policy rather than because they don't want them to wear Halloween costumes. So people at school, yeah, they like to wear it, and I wore a costume on Halloween at school as well, and it was all in good fun. I think it was a good experience.
Some kind of special school party, the ones that in American
usually there are, yeah. Usually there's some kind of Halloween party, but not at every school. But some kind of Halloween party, or at least some kind of rally or something. Maybe they'll have sometimes even at the school, they have events at the school later at night, and everybody will come, and there'll be a party, and they'll be doing different Halloween festivities. I usually didn't participate in those because I just didn't like school, but lots of people do.
I see. Is there any, I mean, we were speaking about school, like the primary and secondary and maybe high school. Is that the same about university? Do they still have some kind of parties?
Well, generally the party in college or university, your parties start to just happen at the houses of the students. Sometimes there's different festivities at school. At university. But there might be a concert, a Halloween concert. Sometimes they have, so we have these things called haunted house. And I'm sure you're familiar with that, but that's it's a house that people put a lot of different decorations in the house, and it's designed to be scary. They make it scary, and oftentimes there's actors in the house, and they walk around in the house, and they scare people. And sometimes it's kind of like a maze, so it's hard to get out of the house, and you get stuck in the house. And usually the young children, very young children, don't like to go in those, but sometimes they do. For example, I actually last weekend went to an amusement park. And almost every amusement park has a Halloween kind of event. And they have maybe 5 or 10 haunted houses at the amusement park. And there were not age limits, but you needed to be a certain height, which meant that there was like an age limit. Like they didn't want very young children to go in. So it's kind of fun, yeah.
Well, I remember going to Disneyland in Los Angeles. Is that in Los Angeles? And that was some kind of, I think it was the end of September, and there were lots and lots of decorations, like plastic or something. Jack-o'-lanterns, and I thought like, wow, this is really great, because this creates this atmosphere. Right. And that
was it during the day when you went?
Yeah.
You recall? Okay. So usually at night, at night they usually open it again, and then it's more Halloween theme. And it's funny you said Disneyland, because I went to a place called Knott's Berry Farm. Do you recall that? That's it's only like 30 minutes from Disneyland.
Well, and it was just a part of the tour, so we didn't have much time to.
Oh, I see. But yeah, they had a very similar kind of thing. But when you go at night, it's much scarier.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what surprised me. That was pretty much great to create this special atmosphere. There was some kind of tombs with names on them, and they were not like real names, but some kind of, some words, created names. That was fun. And the other thing is also you were going in some kind of haunted house, and you could see like real ghosts dancing. There you were looking like from the balcony. That was great. I thought like, wow, this is really amazing, and it's not scary. I think kids who went there, they understood this is just kind of a game, and that was
yeah.
And Halloween for me, especially this year, I understand that it is a good chance to explain a kid about things, like for example, we have like a advent calendar for Halloween, and there was a skeleton. So I started to speak to Agata about bones which we have in the skeleton, and like what skeleton is, like it is the part of our body. There is nothing scary about this, and there is like a skull and different kinds of bones and stuff. So this is a great opportunity to speak about things you have never spoken before. So,
yeah, it's kind of a learning experience, especially to younger children.
Well, that's true. And for this year, I was preparing for myself and for my subscribers. This was like an adventure game with lots and lots of scientific experiences. So we're creating like a tornado in the jar, and creating some kind of, there was like a lava lamp, which we were using like a magic potion or something, So we can actually do this stuff, and we can explain there's nothing magical in this. This is just science.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like early exposure to science, to scientific things. Because when I was at school, I hated science. We had like chemistry and physics, but I was stupid in that, in those, and I was not interested. But now I see that how interesting it is. It's just you need to get the necessary approach to show how great.
Sometimes you just need the right teacher.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. School is another topic to speak to.
Of course.
Okay, and one more thing. It is about Halloween and religion. I don't know how American people really are religious, but in Russia, I can face a lot of moms who are not celebrating Halloween just because this is there is some, can I say, opposition to religion or something.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, it's just like having fun and exposing them to the culture, because, well, I told you once that it's not only about language, it's not only about vocabulary and grammar, it's a lot about culture for them to understand what the difference is. So, and by the way, the other day I was preparing kind of a glossary on a very cool Halloween book. It's like a pop-up book with lots and lots of details, but that was pretty much scary, and I was writing like about the cemetery, with a lot of tombs and a lot of, can I say stones? How do you call this? Stones?
Tombstones, yeah.
Yeah, tombstones. And there were these hands, like zombie hands popping out from the ground. And I thought, how can I explain this to Agata to say about dead people walking? And that was pretty weird. How can I explain cemetery to small kids, This is the question. But, well, my question to you is actually, is there any opposition between religious people and this holiday?
Well, I'd say that the origins of Halloween are from religious groups, and the origins of Halloween are kind of a little bit muddy. It's kind of difficult because there are many different religious groups that did many different things, and to the point where we almost don't even know where it even came from. We just kind of have an idea, but I'd say that the opposition is minimal. There's not much. I know that when I was younger, my mother was religious, and she wasn't really happy when we dressed up in too scary or too gross of a costume. But realistically, at some point, my mom stopped caring, and I'd say that the opposition is minimal. In general, it's kind of a community kind of event, because you're just supposed to go from maybe I didn't mention this, but in America we go and you mentioned candy. In America we go from one house to another house to another house and say trick or treat, and we dress up in our costumes and we try to get candy from all of our neighbors. So it's like a community bonding event. and it's good for the community. So I think very few people are actually opposed to it. At most, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't put decorations out that are too gross or too scary. But usually they have pumpkins or something like that. But yeah, so no, the opposition is very minimal. It's interesting to see that from Russia that the religious opposition is so serious, because I don't really know of much in America. And Americans are very religious too. At least they say they are.
Yeah, I see. Well, I don't know if this is really about religion or this is just like a psychological impact that people think this holiday has on children. I don't know, but that's a little bit weird for me, especially for those who actually represent the culture. We represent like Thanksgiving Day, and this is pretty normal. Although if we start to think and to read about the historical part of that, maybe that's not that funny and nice and clean, you see. Okay, so now I would like you to tell us some kind of funny story of your personal experience or your first experience of Halloween, if you remember this.
Well, like I said, my first Halloween was probably when I was 1 year old. So to be honest, I don't remember my first Halloween, but I remember my earlier ones, if that makes sense. So maybe when I was 4 or 5 is when I actually started to remember. But I remember so it was usually you go trick-or-treating maybe around 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and you start to go from one house to another house to another house. And we lived in kind of a small community. Maybe there was 150 people or 200 people, and in many houses over a large distance. So what we would do is a guy would come around with a tractor, and he would have all the kids go on the tractor, and all the kids would go from one house to another house. Not all of them on the tractor, but a lot of them. And a lot of people would hop on their other tractors, and all the kids would just hop in the tractor in the trailer, and they'd jump around, go to the house. And but that was usually the younger kids, usually like 10 and under. But the older kids, they would always dress up in scary costumes and try to scare the younger kids. So it was always something that, unfortunately, I didn't live there when I was older, but it was something that I always wanted to do. And you're always kind of scared because all of a sudden a bunch of people would run out of the woods and try to scare you, and all the kids would start running around. It was always very fun. Yeah, so the older kids, they wouldn't trick or treat. They would just scare the younger kids who are trick or treating, and sometimes the parents as well. But yeah, it was a good time. But honestly, now in bigger cities, you see almost none of it. So
You mean
we'll have
trick-or-treating or
trick-or-treating, yes. So I'm sorry, yeah. So in 2 weeks is Halloween, and I'll let you know how many people come by my door. But it might be 1 or 2. If 5 children come to our door, I would be very surprised.
What do you think it is connected with? Safety?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I think a lot of it's because the parents don't want their children to be walking around at night anymore. But when I was younger, it was weird because in the smaller community where there's like where I live, there's a lot of lights, there's a lot of people. It seems less scary than when I was younger, and everybody did trick or treating. So I'd have 100 kids at our door, and there's no light. The kids just walk in the dark, but no one's scared. That was also 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Geez, I'm getting old. So yeah, I think it's connected with safety. A lot of parents don't want their children to just walk around at night, because yeah, back then it was my parents just let us walk, and they didn't walk with us. But now it's always the kid with the parent, if anything, and oftentimes it's not even that. Parents just buy the kid the candy. They say, "Here, don't go trick or treating. Here's a bag of candy."
Well, that's pretty sad because this is such a nice tradition. I feel quite sorry we don't have it here. I think we could go, but people do not speak English a lot here. But we are going to make kind of a party for our kids. There's a little kind of community of moms. We're going to be about like 4 or 5 moms to have this kind of, I don't know, like party at the end of October. So, but this is pretty much fun. It would be pretty much fun to go trick-or-treating because we do not have this opportunity. And I have had to write this kind of glossary to play with what's like they are going trick-or-treating. And we even tried this last year with another one. But I think she understands the idea. But we did that when we were at the university because I was studying at the language university. And 2 first years, that was like obvious we should do this. And we actually went trick-or-treating from room to room.
Really?
And did that. But it's, you know, it's not that much fun because we were not kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's true.
I have another question for you, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what is the list of activities that people usually do, like for small kids? Because when I was at school, we were reading about, what were we reading? About these apples, which are in a big tub of water, and a child is supposed to try to take out this with his mouth.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call that bobbing for apples, and people do it at some like birthday parties or something like that, or some like county fairs or something where it's like on a farm or something like that. They'll have bobbing for apples, which is where you try to bite the apple in the water. But I don't think I've ever heard of anybody doing that during Halloween. On Halloween, usually what we do is on Halloween, we obviously dress up in our costumes and do trick-or-treating. That's like the number one thing that traditionally we would do. But other than that, we have the jack-o'-lanterns. That's really big. So usually a couple days prior, you have everybody goes out and to what's called a pumpkin patch, which is basically a farm where they have all the pumpkins, and all the children, they go out and try to find the biggest pumpkin or the one that they want, and then they buy that. Everybody goes home, and everybody cuts the jack-o'-lantern. So it's as a family, everybody makes a face or whatever they want on the pumpkin, and then what you do is you take all the seeds and everything out inside, and you put a candle in or a light or something like that so that you can see the image that you carved out of the pumpkin. And that's something that is pretty common. And oftentimes just setting decorations out in front of the house. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. Sometimes there's a dinner. Sometimes families get together for Halloween and have dinner. Or oftentimes people like to watch scary movies on Halloween as well.
What's your favorite one, if you ever did it?
We always watch something different, but I usually like zombie movies.
I see.
I think it's a good Halloween theme. But other than that, Halloween is not it's important in America, but it's not like Christmas, or it's not like a birthday, or it's not like a New Year's. Those are much more important holidays, whereas Halloween, it's more like you take 2 or 3 days to prepare for it. It's not a big deal, especially in the city. Like, we probably won't even have decorations here because no one else does, and then maybe 1 in every 100 houses will have some kind of decoration. Another thing people do is they go to like a farm, and they at the farm they'll have the haunted house. Sometimes they'll have a party, but in the city there's no farms, so those are more things that you do in smaller towns. But yeah, it's Halloween. I might say that it's like a short-lived holiday where it's like you dress up, you go out with your friends, you do trick-or-treating, and then it's about done. It's not like a Halloween, Christmas is like 2 weeks of like just a lot of things going on, whereas Halloween's not so much like that.
I see it. Well, this is weird because I was reading so many articles. Maybe they were like a perfect, or how do I say that? Making it look perfect that you really start like celebrating from the very 1st of October, and you start setting out all these decorations from the very first day of October?
Though, so the decorations that are usually set out around October are not because of Halloween. It's more they're just fall decorations.
Mm-hmm.
So like fall comes, so pumpkins are not necessarily a Halloween thing. They're a fall thing, really. And then what you do is you have the pumpkin out for a month, or even in September, people start these types of decorations. And then you have the pumpkin all outside on your front door all month. And then at the end of the month, Halloween, you carve the pumpkin, and then you make the jack-o'-lantern out of the pumpkin. Other than that, it's not something that we like prepare for that long. Maybe some people will take a while on their costume and make like a very specific costume, something that takes a lot of effort, but not really. I'll probably just go to the store and buy something, and like the day before Halloween, I'll probably make a costume.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a real situation, I guess. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the same here if we had this celebration, I think. But as for moms and small kids, we teach them to do, well, we actually not teach them, but we do this like from the very first day of October. We say
Mm-hmm.
Halloween at the end. And as for historical part, of course, we can't explain them a lot. But as what I'm saying to Agata is just that it's like autumn, fall is coming, and this is like the death of the worm season.
Mm-hmm.
Summer is going away. We have to prepare for winter, which is hard and difficult because of this and that and this, and it's just that what we start to do. And it's like about 2 weeks we've been doing some crafts, doing
Mm-hmm.
some kind of stuff like that. So she feels this atmosphere, because for small kids, I think if you do it for just 1 or 2 days, they're not going to get that.
That's true. Absolutely. I don't have children, so I cannot attest to that. But yes, I agree. I feel like when I was younger and we lived in a smaller town where there were fewer people and the community was closer, then Halloween was more like a week-long thing. But in a city, it's like a day, and that's about it. Yeah.
That's a little bit sad.
It is
Well,
sad. It
actually,
definitely is.
adults, they're not concerned because they just do not have time for this. You start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about this when you have small kids around, and they
Oh, yes.
see this kind of magic of every celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my last question was to actually, our kids explained this historical part of the event at schools. Do teachers tell them some kind of these stories, how it all happened, or they just do these kind of crafts and activities and dressing up and trick-or-treating? That's it.
Nobody has any idea what Halloween is, to be honest, because like I said earlier, there's so many different religious activities or religious groups that did different things on Halloween. Sometimes it was they would. To my knowledge, at some point it was the whole trick-or-treating thing. The idea of trick-or-treating started with people that were homeless and poor and had no food. So they're going from one house to another asking for food, and then they wore costumes because it was entertaining, and you entertained the person, maybe he would give you food. I'm sure that probably happened somewhere, but to my knowledge, many different countries had different histories. We don't in school, to be honest, we don't know what it is.
Well, this is
Yeah,
also kind of strange because school is supposed to be educating, right? And
it sure
this is
is.
something they have to understand why you actually do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No, I
wanted to
totally
ask you
agree.
something else, but it slipped from my mind. I wanted to ask you. Oh,
Hmm.
silly me, really. I wanted to ask you something else about this. Well, okay. Anyway, I'm gonna ask the people who are listening to us in Russia now. That was something connected with Russia. I remember. I remember what I was asking. Since you are still learning Russian, maybe you knew that. Sorry, there was a Russian tradition of similar to the American one of Halloween, but it happened, I think, in somewhere January, and people dressed up as well in villages. I mean, a long time ago, they dressed up and they went and did some kind of trick or treating. They were asking for real food, but that was not like they were beggars or something. They were just, this was kind of a game. and they were happy to get something like cheese or butter or pies, stuff like that. But this tradition is forgotten, actually. And I'm really surprised with the so close, I don't know how to explain this. Well, I mean, these two holidays, they're very similar in how people do this. But still, Russian people support this Russian part. It's called kolyadki. But we do not do this. I mean, nobody does this. Even in villages, maybe they do not do this anymore. But still, they have this kind of little bit negative thing about American Halloween. Maybe because it's politics.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the things spoken about American stuff. Okay. So, I'm going to ask moms if they have any questions. Девочки, если у вас есть какие-то вопросы, вы можете написать в чат, потому что мы уже сейчас заканчиваем. Вот, если что-то интересно спросить, давайте спрашивайте. So, still a couple of minutes for them if we take them.
Yeah, of course.
Well, you say.
Oh, so I think that one of the biggest reasons why we don't have, especially people my age, we don't celebrate Halloween as much is because I think to some degree life is getting more complicated and we almost have not enough time to do these celebrations. And I feel like Christmas used to be, 2 weeks of family and getting together, and now it's a few days. Sometimes it's less. Halloween, it's like, okay, well, I bought my costume and that's it. All right, well, we'll do our party and then tomorrow I have to go to work. I think that especially without children, it's almost like Halloween in big cities is starting to be forgotten.
I think it's everywhere like so. I mean, no matter what culture you'll take, it's not that fun for adults because they just are too busy. They do not have time. They have to do their jobs every day. Well, okay, maybe no questions from our listeners. That was so good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It was fun.
Have a good day and happy Halloween if you're going to do something with that.
Oh, we will. Thank you very much. Happy Halloween as well.
Thanks a lot. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.